So this is a township of crofthouses, just meaning that it's a cluster of crofthouses close together, and that's the way people lived because they needed to stay together and rely on each other and help each other out with all the crofting and the chores that needed doing. This is the house that my great-great-grandparents lived in, and the house where my nan came for her summer holidays, and she loved to be here with her grandparents. So as you can see, there's not much left of the interior of the house now, but it is actually really nice to see the wild honeysuckle and plants and raspberries and things overtaking the building here. It actually looks like a really nice garden. There's one or two utensils left, and I see the remains of a cooking pot in the fire here. And it's just really nice to think that my ancestors probably sat right here knitting by the fire in the olden days. So theirs apparently was one of the best houses in the Closs here, and they were the first ones to have an outside toilet built onto the end of the house. But the story goes that the ladies didn't like this modern invention of an outside toilet, and so they stopped using it and put chickens in there instead. So my grandmother, my nanny, when she came here for her holidays, she would run round and round through all the little Closs lanes here and play hide and seek with her cousins. And then she would see her parents coming over the hill to collect her and fetch her home, and then she would hide and not want to go home with them. Traditional Shetland crofthouses would have had thatched roofs, and they consisted of two rooms, a butt and a ben. The butt end was the living area, and there would have been a pit fire for cooking, and water would have been carried from the well. The ben end was the sleeping area, and there would have been built-in box beds for warmth. Attached to one end of the house there would have been a byre, where the kye were kept in stalls. There was often a door and a small passageway between the living accommodation and the byre. You were considered to be doing very well if you had your own coo, because it elevated the diet to include milk, cheese and butter. There would also have been a barn at the rear of the house for storing crops and animal feed. Sometimes boats that were no longer seaworthy were upturned and made into the roof for a shed. So this is Lerwick, the capital of Shetland and also my childhood home. Its name translates from Old Norse Lervik, meaning muddy bay. So Lerwick evolved from an early settlement of just a few residents in the 1640s. Its success as a growing town is thought to be from its early beginnings as a smuggling town. I grew up in Lerwick in Market Street, which is near here, and so the lanes were a bit of a playground for me and my sister when we were young. We used to run up and down the lanes, and we particularly seemed to enjoy coming here in a dark night and the street lighting seemed to be very poor back then, and it was really dark, and we would absolutely terrify ourselves running up and down the lanes. Dr. Arthur Emerson gave his impression of Lerwick in 1809. The houses, he said, have been set down without any regard to any plan, and generally with their ends to the sea, stuck in haphazardly as merchants jostle for a piece of the foreshore to trade. Many of the lanes were originally known by the names of the early builders, but they were renamed by the Commissioner of Police in 1845. Joseph Leask's Close, Gilbert Tate's Close, and Sutherland's Close therefore became Pitt, Reform, and Fox Lane. I'm heading now towards Commercial Street and Jimieson's Wool Shop. That's a family-owned business based in Sannis, but with a shop on the street. They've produced 100% Shetland wool for many generations. I'm now passing the Lounge Bar, a well-known bar featuring local weekly music. This is the lane down to the popular The Peary Shop. The Lodburys along the seafront meant that boats could be brought directly alongside them, enabling goods to be loaded and unloaded. Sometimes the goods were smuggled through tunnels under Commercial Street to avoid taxes. Commercial Street was the first street in the town, as houses were laid out along the waterfront. From there the distinctive lane spread upwards from Commercial Street. This is Bank Lane, the steepest of the Lerwick lanes. Hence the iron handrail was provided to assist you getting up there. The Opelia Fire Festival is celebrated every year in January. The festival's roots date back to the 19th century tradition of tar barrelling. Groups of young Lerwick men in disguise would roll barrels of lighted tar through the narrow streets of Lerwick. The burning tar would spill as the men tried to navigate the narrow lanes, no doubt causing damage and mayhem, and that led to it being banned in 1874. And here I am at Jimieson Smith, also known as the Wool Brokers. They have been buying a large percentage of the Shetland wool clip since the 1930s, which they turn into beautiful yarns and products. One of the highlights that we look forward to in the Shetland summertime are the agricultural shows. There are marquees and sheds displaying everything from handicrafts, flowers, fleeces, baking, and vegetables, and of course knitwear. I was delighted with my prizes in knitwear. It was great to see such a turnout at this year's show after a 2-year absence during the pandemic. Of course, being an agricultural show, the main event is the livestock. Animals are brought along to be shown and judged. I also really enjoyed visiting the Istgel show this year. There were some really fine entries in the knitwear section, including some absolutely stunning lace. I was also really pleased to see one of my patterns, the Merknen mitts, also on display. I love seeing all the Shetland animals, including this prize-winning best Shetland coo. And now for the long drive home.